My name is Ariola Bardhi. I'm originally from Albania, and I moved first to the States about 12 years ago to study and pursue my college degree. And during that time, I actually became interested in biomedical research, so then I decided to enroll into a PhD program in New York. My research was focused on engineered immunotherapies for HIV treatment. It was challenging work, as you can imagine, just like science normally is. But at the same time, it was very rewarding. I learned a lot. And actually, my work recently advanced into a clinical trial in humans. So as you can imagine, it was really exciting work and opportunity to see how impactful my research could be. And also just given how translational this work was, I also started to get interested in learning a little bit more about how drugs are developed and commercialized. So a little bit those steps beyond bench research. And with that in mind, after I completed my graduate studies, I was able to apply my scientific knowledge and skills in a couple of different professional settings. I first transitioned into a life sciences consulting role, where I worked with pharmaceutical and biotech companies to really advise them on commercial and clinical strategies so that they could think about prioritizing developing drugs in diseases with highest unmet need. So this was a great opportunity for me to learn how to think, at a high level strategy. But I also wanted a bit of exposure into execution. So after close to 2 years in that role, I transitioned into a medical communications position, which is where I'm currently at. And here I'm still working closely with pharma companies, but I am supporting them more closely with medical strategy, thought leader engagement, and developing educational materials for treatments in the immuno-oncology space. So I'm more closer to supporting launch of products and all the medical planning around it. So as you can see, my scientific interests have been pretty vast, or really going all the way from bench research to drug launch and more broadly patient care. But it's been a really interesting experience, and I do think it is very helpful to stay open and try to learn as much as possible during your career, because there's so much out there, and when it comes to also research, there's a lot of great opportunities. So INet New York City has definitely been one of the great experiences during my time as a graduate student. The idea of INet started actually in collaboration with my friend and at the time a classmate, Mike Vinstra. We were both very eager to really work on building our professional skills, building a strong network of scientists and other life science professionals. And we had noticed that New York is a very active scene of networking and events, but there was a niche, there was an opportunity for a group that was tailored more specifically to international scientists. A lot of foreign scientists do come to New York institutions. So we wanted an avenue to exchange experiences and also talk about challenges that we had in common and learn and problem solve together. So this was actually an idea that just started because we were really passionate and very interested in connecting with more individuals like us. But it has been one of the greatest experiences, and I've learned a lot from starting INet New York City. Now, maybe there's a lot of information available on the history, and now we have a website, social channels, so there's a lot of presence, and I don't want to just be repeating all of them, but I would say that it's very important to me because I've learned how important it is to really be open to new opportunities. In science and anything in life, you should follow your passions and your interests, and it's important to be persistent also. But at the same time, there's so much going on and there's so many opportunities that it's very important to also capture the moment, notice what's going on around you, and see what else you could be doing. And this, I think, applies to research, but also anything in life. I've noticed, in science, we get so involved with our projects, that maybe challenging questions, and what we're doing, that sometimes we develop this tunnel vision and you start disregarding everything around you. But if you stay a little bit more open and network with people, you'll find new avenues and opportunities that you hadn't thought about. And for me, not only I was able to connect with so many brilliant and talented scientists, but I also was exposed to so many different career paths, and that's where I really started thinking of what can I be doing with my background. And I interacted specifically with professionals that had been in my place. And so maybe if INet hadn't happened, I don't know what my professional trajectory would have looked like. So I think, it's been a really tremendous experience. I'm really happy to see it, that the group still continues strong and has been very active with many members. I do hope all of them are benefiting from the opportunities despite the current virtual environment. So unfortunately, the work-life balance question comes up a lot, and this is beyond science, across industries, and particularly it's a true consideration in very active and competitive job markets like New York, because everybody is so talented, they have so much to offer, and they want to show how capable they are, that I think frequently, particularly young professionals, just because of this eagerness, lose that sight of how important it is to just keep things sustainable long term. And in addition to that, there's also the pressures, from the industry and supervision and higher management, whether it's, in an academic lab or in another industry setting. So maintaining work-life balance, I think, is top consideration across career settings. And I've seen the other blogs in this series, and unfortunately, it just comes down to the same answer. You need to be truthful with yourself, understand what is important to you, and then just find avenues of how to make it work. Sometimes it can be easier said than done. There are, situations in which really your participation is needed. But I think it's important that we are freed from this idea that I need to be working all the time to really show my worth. And perhaps there's opportunities to talk to your supervisor, figure out when you can split the load. Science is such a collaborative field. You need other people. So maybe you can find somebody to support you with your work, or in certain cases, perhaps it's not possible. You need to do a lot of work, but you just manage your time so that you can create pockets of freedom, do something that really energizes you, or, completely de-stresses, and then you can you can get back to it with, fresh perspective. And I think for a lot of people, including myself, you don't realize how much this is needed until you've gone a little bit too far and you start really burning out and feeling it. So it's really important to be proactively working about it. Work-life balance requires its own work, but it's totally worth it. And once you get a hang of it, you realize, what are the flexibilities and the opportunities to maintain it. So it's definitely something not to disregard, and it just requires some effort, but it is doable. Yeah, so maybe you've noticed from my little story of my scientific background that my interests vary a lot. So not only in science, but even in my personal life, I don't have one go-to, my personal space and the one thing that completely relaxes me. I think it's for me, it's important to have variety. So there are periods of time that maybe I just, want to be really lazy and I watch TV shows, or like I read an easy book. When spring and summer come in New York, I just feel like being outdoors. So, if I have opportunity to do an outdoor exercising class, whether, I just see friends or go on a hike, those, really change up my pace of life, and, just really give me an opportunity to take a break from all the fast-paced life and the professional world. And then sometimes, it's also important to think of, even though you may be in the professional spot where you want to be, it's very important to keep learning and gaining new skills. So there are a lot of like online classes where you can learn something that you are maybe not so good at, or is just outside of the areas that you've considered. In the beginning of the pandemic, I just started reading and taking some online classes on personal finance, just because it felt like it was about time that I knew what I was doing with my life in that aspect. So I think the way I spend my free time and what motivates me changes a lot, but I've noticed, it is there. And once I'm able to do these other things, I really just feel a lot more motivated to succeed even professionally and push through maybe those tough moments as well. And so it's important to realize what truly works for you, and this is true with everything, what science projects you want to do, what your career path is going to be, how you maintain work-life balance. It's all a personal choice, and it's very important that everyone is honest with themselves and understands, what drives them, and just, do that more. I know I've had friends and colleagues that are completely the opposite of me. They love a structured day. They like to wake up at a certain time early in the morning, work out, then work and be super efficient, and then cook dinner. And, their agenda is completely packed, and it works beautifully for them. So everybody is very different. And as long as you know what works for you, then you're set up for success, really. Yeah, if I look back in my career, I think there's definitely learnings, maybe some things I would be doing differently, but I think it comes back to what I mentioned earlier about being open to opportunities and just looking what's around you and then thinking about how that may impact your interests. I mentioned the example of INet-New City, but the same applies to scientific projects. In the beginning, I remember, I started projects, they were not going the way I wanted them to go. In the end, in science, we just take educated guesses of what may be going on with biology, and that's not always, what's actually happening. So I constantly felt the pressure that I'm not good enough, maybe I'm not taking the right approach, I just need to work more. And I wasn't being open to maybe exploring other projects, maybe talking to other colleagues that had different experiences and could give me a different perspective of how to change my projects. And it wasn't until I interacted with enough peers that it really became apparent to me that you need to be open and a little bit flexible. Science is about persistence, but it's also about being smart and just going with the flow. You need to be constantly adapting and following the right questions in order to succeed. So I think, yeah, I would just really try to be a little bit more open and just enjoying the process rather than stressing out and focusing on what I'm achieving when.